everybody, and welcome back to my channel. This is Crime Corner with Kayla. This is Benjamin. So Benjamin is going to be our sidekick for the foreseeable future. Benji Bones. Benjamin, say hi. Hi. Everybody say hi to Benjamin. Say hi. Come on, let's have a look. Let's say hi. Say hi. I hope you've all had a fantastic week so far. My week has just been family orientated. I had family over from Ireland, so I had my siblings over. My mum and dad are still back home, but I will hopefully be seeing them next month, which is great. Today's case has been covered a few times. I'm not going to say it hasn't. You've probably already heard about this case, but I felt like it wouldn't be a true crime channel if I didn't cover this case. So today we are going to be speaking about Cassie Jo Stoddart, and the nickname for this case is the Scream Killers. If you know, you know. Before we start, I will put a little disclaimer up here just to kind of give you a heads up of what we're going to be speaking about today. I am going to be trying out a new mic today, so I don't know how it's going to sound. Today we're going to be speaking about Cassie Jo Stoddart. Now, Cassie Jo Stoddart was born on the 21st of December in 1989. She had two siblings. She had a younger brother and an older sister. They lived in Idaho, which is known as a safe, simple place. They did live with their grandparents, but I don't think they had any bad blood between their parents. I think that they just lived with the grandparents. They still spoke to the mother. In the fall of 2006, Cassie was 16 years of age. She had a boyfriend called Matt. She was a behaved 16-year-old, which I wasn't. I'm not going to lie. Sorry, mom and dad. She was responsible. You could trust her. Cassie and her boyfriend Matt would spend a lot of time together, but they would spend the time mostly at Cassie's house, watching movies, doing homework, the usual things you'd be doing. As I was saying, Cassie was quite a responsible 16-year-old girl. She was babysitting to save up for money for a car. Cassie's aunt and uncle just lived down the road from her, so they weren't that far away from her, and they had 3 kids. The 3 kids that they had were younger, so Cassie would babysit for them to get the money. An opportunity came up for Cassie to house sit. So her aunt and her uncle went to Cassie and asked Cassie if she could house sit. This was the weekend of September 20th. Side note, do you realise that there are so many cases that surround the month of September? My birthday is the 20th of September. So when I see the 20th of September, or the 21st, the 22nd, it kind of blows my mind a little bit. I don't know if it's just because I'm picking them. Maybe it's just an attractive thing because it says September. But we moved. But she had this opportunity to house it, and she did. She took the opportunity. She'd get some money for it, and she's helping out family. As I said, responsible. So September 20th comes along, and Cassie's mother actually drops Cassie off to the house. There's a bit of a journey towards Cassie's aunt and uncle's house from Cassie's house. So they have to do this little journey. You can't just walk there, you have to use a car. And it is secluded, the house, it's detached, it's on its own, it's covered with forestry. So the house is quite secluded. Also in this house, they had 2 cats and 3 dogs. So she would have the responsibility of feeding the dog, taking care of the cats, feeding the cats, taking care of the dogs. Now she was going to be house sitting this house alone. So she brought up to her aunt and uncle if she could have her boyfriend Matt stay with her. They said, look, he can come over, he can watch movies with you, whatever. But he can stay. She was responsible, they trust her. I can hear music downstairs. So on September the 22nd in 2006, Cassie was house sitting with her boyfriend Matt. At 8:20, Brian and Tori, which were Matt's and Cassie's friends, came over to watch a movie with them. They said they would watch a horror movie. They were very into the kind of horror thing. So they were watching a horror movie. And halfway through, at about 9:30, Brian and Tori decided, this is shit. I'm going to go to the cinema. Now, you're watching a movie in someone's house and then you leave because it's boring to go to the cinema. Red flag. I'd be like, it's either I'm boring as frick, or they're going to do drugs. Dodgy. Around that time, Cassie's mother gave her a call to check up on her, make sure she was okay, to see if there was did she need anything? Is she feeling comfortable? Is she feeling safe? And Cassie said, yeah. She was like, look, Matt's still here. I feel fine. I feel nice and safe. It's okay. And I will talk to you in the morning. So Cassie's mother was like, I love you. Cassie was like, love you too. And they would talk in the morning. As Cassie and Matt are watching a movie, there's a power cut and the dogs start barking. There's noises kind of going on, but they were like, it's just a power cut. And a few minutes later, the lights come back on. So they're like, oh, it was just a quick power cut. The dogs have calmed down. We're good. It's fine. So that was power cut number 1. At about 10:30, Matt's mother called Matt and said, I'm coming to pick you up, as they agreed previously, I'm guessing. Cassie was obviously a little bit nervous. There was just a power cut. So Matt asked his mother if he could stay over for overnight. Being a typical mother, said, no, you are not going to be staying overnight. Matt's mother did actually offer Cassie to come back to Matt's house and said she can come and she can stay over here if she wants to. But obviously Kat's house sitting is the whole purpose of her being there. So she's saying, look, I can't, I'm house sitting. In the car on the way back from Cassie's aunt and uncle's house, Matt and Matt's mother are in the car. Matt decides to call Tori and say, I've just left Cassie, I'm going to go home, she's going to go to bed, call off just in case you did come back. Now Tori was whispering on the phone. Now obviously they went to the cinema, so you're going to be like, okay, they're a bit quiet because they're at the cinema. But Tori was obviously really whispering, but there was no noise in the background. But Matt was like a little bit suspicious. Because there was a power cut, Cassie felt quite nervous going upstairs to sleep, so she actually decided to sleep in the living room. She'd sleep on the couch, get comfy, watch movies until she fell asleep. At this time, there's another power cut. This one has banging, cupboard doors slamming, smashing noises. Like, a lot more concerning things are going on in that time for Cassie to be freaked the fuck out. Now all of this noise is coming from the basement, and Cassie's like, fuck no, I'm not going down to the basement. I mean, would you? No. It only happens in the movies. You don't actually go to the basement if you hear a noise down there. You don't go to the basement if you hear bangs, okay? So she did the right thing. She shouted, who's there? No one responded. So Cassie was a little bit freaked out. Lights came back on, lights came back off. There was noises, there was banging. She was like, I ain't going anywhere near that basement, so I'm just going to be staying in the living room by herself and just watch movies until she falls asleep. Until suddenly there was a burst through the door. 12:30 a.m. that morning, Matt called Cassie to check on her. Now she didn't answer. He wasn't any way suspicious, so he kind of decided, look, she's probably asleep, it's fine. The next morning, Matt calls Cassie 15 times and there's not one response. Now Matt has a lot of stuff going on that day, so Matt thinks to himself, look, she's probably either sleeping, she could have lost her phone, there's a power cut, maybe her phone died and she can't charge it. Coming up with like reasons for why she wouldn't be answering her phone. So he didn't worry too much. He carried on with his day. It was until Cassie's mother tried to call Cassie and there was no answer. So Cassie's mom was getting quite worried and concerned, but she kind of was like, you know, could be anything. There's reasons for everything. You know, you don't jump straight to the biggest worry. You just don't do it, especially if you're a responsible 16-year-old girl house sitting. On the 24th of September, Cassie's aunt and uncle return home from having a nice weekend away with the kids. Come in the door and they shout, Cassie, we're home, or is everything okay? Hi, Cassie, we're back. There's no response. So they go around the house kind of like not worrying too much. She could be busy, she could be asleep, you just don't know. Until Cassie's 13-year-old cousin comes across a scene that she would never expect to see. She went into the living room and she found Cassie on the couch in an awful position, smothered in blood. There's blood everywhere. She's got wounds everywhere, and unfortunately Cassie was found dead by her 13-year-old cousin. According to the autopsy results, they say that there was 30 stab wounds, but 12 of which were fatal. So the first person you would suspect in something like this is the boyfriend. He was the last one to see her. He was with her in the house. They were alone. Tori and Brian left, but they ruled Matt out quite quickly. They'd done a polygraph test. He passed. He had an alibi. He was with his mum. His mum picked him up, dropped him home. He went straight home with his mum. So there is no possibility it could have been Matt. Yeah, where is my vape gone? Can you imagine finishing school on a Friday, going to house sit, and being found dead on a Sunday? What the fuck? With regards to polygraph tests, now I want to know your guys' opinion on this. So it's me of like Jerry Springer, Jeremy Kyle. That's what it reminds me of. Jerry. In one of Matt's interviews, he did mention Tori and Brian. Now, Tori and Brian were only there for maximum an hour before they went to the cinema. In one of Matt's interviews, he mentions Brian and Tori, and he says they came along for an hour, they left to go to the cinema. Yep, they were watching a movie with us, but you wouldn't suspect anything. Like a girl and a boy, boyfriend and girlfriend, are house sitting, and you've got two other boys come over. So if those two boys leave, there's reasons, like you would think, do they feel uncomfortable, like a third and fourth wheel? You just don't know. There's so many different reasons for it. But shit's about to get messed up. Buckle in. So they then bring Brian in with his parents for his first interview, and Brian states that he went to the house, watched a bit of a movie, got a bit bored, and said that him and Brian went to the movie theatre, watched a movie at the movie theatre, and then went back to Brian's house and slept over at Brian's house. When they interviewed Tori had the exact same answer, but it was word for word. Suspicious. It's just too perfect. And you know what they say about if something looks too good, it's probably not true. That comes up, doesn't it? So the police decided to go to the cinema, the movie theatre, and see if they can catch any lie in their story or alibi. The person that was actually working at the cinema was in school with Brian and Tori, so he would have noticed what they've looked like, who they were, whichever. But he said, no, they were definitely not here. And trust me, he was like, I would know if they were here. They weren't. Suspicious. They then take Brian in for a second interview, and Brian's second interview kind of goes a little bit more in the police's direction, where they're wanting it to go, that they know they weren't at the cinema. Like, we know you weren't at the cinema, Brian. I mean, come on. You need to tell us what's going on. Why did you kill her? Now, Brian's like, she's like one of my really good friends. I would never do that. I did not kill her. Like, obviously, he's really adamant, I did not kill her. But then he turns around and says, look, okay, I'm going to confess, we were actually out robbing cars. Oh my God. He said they had gloves, they had masks, they had knives, they had everything. They came up with all of like the reasons. Now bear in mind, the police have found some sort of evidence. They have the guy at the cinema saying, no, they weren't here. But they're also investigating the house, they're looking around the house, and they're also looking at the streets. That's where Brian said that they were robbing cars. So they were like, okay, so you were out robbing? He's like, yes. And then after they were robbing cars, that's when they went back to Brian's house to then bring Tori in for his second interview. And they say, Brian's told us what's going on. Brian's told us that you've been robbing cars. And then Tori's like, yeah. He then states, yes, we were robbing cars and all this kind of thing. Now, Tori's parents are in the same room. It's bizarre. So the police are questioning Tori. They mention the cars. And then Tori's mother steps up and she says, is that where the CD case came from? And Tori's like, yeah, that's where it came from. So you robbed that night, the night that Cassie passed away. Now this is where it gets so fucked up, because his dad steps up and says, well, no, because I seen that sitting there way days before you went to Cassie's house. And he was like, well, it could have been any other day. I can't remember what day it was, but I'm sure it was that night. And then his mum and dad are stepping up and they're like, no, Tori, you're lying, because that's been there for a while now. You never said that you robbed it. You said it was one of your friends and he was going to come and get it. But guess what? He didn't. Because, it's a lie. Everyone lies. In Brian's second interview, they mention a polygraph test, and they mention Matt. Matt's passed his polygraph test with flying colours. He has his alibi. It's legit. It's set in stone. We're actually going to give you a polygraph test. And this is when you can see like Brian's demeanour change. Instead of sitting up with confidence, he is now slouching. Like, you can kind of tell by the way somebody's acting in an interview, or if they're acting in like an interrogation, you can see like the waves. So he starts off like this, no, we were robbing cars, we're fine, we were robbing cars. And then when they're like, we mentioned a polygraph test, he slouches. And he starts to kind of like hide his face as if he's trying to hide himself from the situation. The police have done this for bloody years. Like, the police officer that was actually interrogating him was like, I've been doing this for 16 years. I can tell a guilty person by looking at them. He actually ended up confessing. At time of confessing, he went into detail about how Cassie was murdered. But first, he took the police to the site where he buried all of the evidence. They found knives, they found masks, they found gloves, they found a backpack, they found a camera with video footage of them premeditating the murder, of them doing the murder, and after the murder. They documented the entire thing on camera. And I'm not even going to go into any more detail. I'm just going to show you. I'm going to show you the before, the middle, and the after. Not showing you the middle, no. I'm going to show you the before the murder, and then I'm going to show you after the murder. Buckle in, Benji.
September 22nd to 2006. We're skipping the next 40 hour. We're not even planning right now. I'm just going to Cassie's family. She had number one. We have to confirm. And she's perfect, so she's gonna die.
Just killed Cassie. We just left her house. This is not a f***ing joke.
I'm shaking.
I stabbed her in the throat and I saw her lifeless body just disappear. Dude, I just killed Cassie. Oh, fuck. That felt like it wasn't even real. I mean, it went by so fast.
Shut the f*** up. We gotta get our act straight.
Technique is shown here. In reality, Brian merely needs to get a lawyer and stop talking at this point. When left alone, we can clearly see Brian beginning to break. The first thing Brian asked the returning interrogators is how his parents are reacting, just showing us how juvenile he really is, despite his horrible crimes.
How's my parents?
Well, I mean, you can talk to them.
We just talked to them. You're going to go back out here in a second.
You want to talk to
How
them?
they react.
You know, you got great parents, man.
They're supporting you. They're supporting you. They want what we want. They want to get you out from underneath something. If it is, they're totally 100% supportive. We're a team, and you've got great parents, man.
I know what
I'm telling you, and you already know that, but they're willing to stand beside you and support you on this thing. But like I said, this car burglary thing's not an issue.
Despite Brian's brief relief, the interrogators are quick to let him know he's not out of the woods yet. They know he's not. According to Brian, when he met Tori, the boys started talking about how it would be cool to commit a crime, inspired by the Scream movie.
So what is your relationship with Cassie?
Friends.
Okay. Is it any, you ever dated her or anything like that, or just strictly kind of friends? How often do you see her, maybe during a week?
Every day at that house. On Friday.
It was after I got back from taking Jamie to the game.
It was about 6:30 or 7.
6:30ish.
About there.
Okay, between 6:30 and 7.
Yeah.
You left your house.
Yeah, and I went and picked up
Maybe
Brian.
7. Probably, between 6:30 and 7.
Okay. And
Picked up Brian.
you were driving your red, that red, is it Jeep?
Yeah.
Okay, and that's your car, you get back and forth in. So you drove that to Brian's house.
I picked him up, and then
About around what time do you think it was?
I don't know, maybe 7, between 7 and 7:30.
Okay.
In reality, Brian and Tori had planned to kill Cassie on that very Thursday he talked about. Spoke. They're our friends, but we have, for whatever reason, they...
You restrict somebody from it, they're gonna want it more. People, I know it's a wrong thing.
Night and I feel really weird and stuff. Spoke. They're our friends he talked about. They filmed themselves in a car that night, saying that they'd snooped around another girl's house, but she wasn't home, so they were going to call up Matt and Cassie. In that tape, Brian spoke. They're our friends, but we have to make sacrifices. So, I feel tonight it is the night and I feel really weird and stuff. I feel like I want to kill somebody. For whatever reason, they didn't go through with it that night.
There should be no law against killing people. I know it's a wrong thing, but hell, you restrict somebody from it, they're gonna want it more.
We found our victim, and sad as it may be, she's our friend. But you know what? We all have to make sacrifices. Our first victim is going to be Cassie Stoddart. She's going to be alone in a big, dark house out in the middle of nowhere. How perfect can you get? I mean, like, holy shit, dude.
I'm horny just thinking about it.
Hell yeah.
At school the next morning, Brian recorded a short video of Cassie by her locker.
Have you seen Tori?
How bizarre. How bizarre is that? Like, it's fucking crazy. Like, picking up something and seeing actual full documented evidence that they premeditated it. They even had a list. They're in the school library at the beginning, and they have a list of who they're going to kill. And prior to Cassie's murder, the night before, they were going to actually murder another girl, but when they got to the house, she wasn't there. So they said, oh, okay, fine. We'll just, we'll go somewhere else. Cassie was on the list, but then Matt and Cassie mentioned to them that she was going to be house sitting, and they were like, here's our chance. So Brian's confession was, like I said, in detail. What they said they'd done is as follows. Brian says that Brian and Tori had planned to do the whole thing, to do the entire murder of Cassie. And their plan was to say they were going to the cinema, leave for like a few minutes, but come back around. They ended up walking through the back of the house, so like through the garden into the back, and they got into the basement. And they stayed there for a while. They then found the electricity box, tripped the electricity off, flicked it back on. So the entire power cut was Brian and Tori. They then done it again. Then Matt calls Tori and says, I've just left, please don't come back to the house. He's not whispering because he's in the cinema. He's whispering because he's in the freaking basement. So he's in the basement, being as quiet as he can. And then they start making a ruckus, turning off the power, turning it back on. They're expecting Cassie to come down to the basement to them so they can attack her. But Cassie was like, no, I'm not going into the basement. As like I said, would you? She didn't go down to the basement. So they started smashing ashtrays, banging on the door, making like really big loud noises in hopes that Cassie would come down and attack her. They ended up getting so frustrated that they just barged through the door and they ran into the living room where Cassie was sitting, and they proceeded to stab her 30 times. Both of them just brutally murdered one of their so-called friends. Tragic. 16, she had her whole life ahead of her. When they then took Tori in for another questioning, they basically questioned him about that CD case that I mentioned, and that kind of caught him out a little bit and took him off guard. Then they tell him that Brian has made a full confession. As they tell him this, his face drops, his energy drops, and his parents are telling him, we still love you and we support you and it's okay, just tell the truth, tell the truth. He admits it, he admits to everything. But the thing is, Brian is blaming Tori, saying that Tori is the one that did all the stabbing, but Tori is blaming Brian and saying that Brian did all the stabbing. Interviews. No, I actually watched 4 to 5 hours worth of their interviews. The way that the police try and not manipulate them, but trying to get them to confess is just insane. They're both arrested, put in handcuffs and put into a cell. On the 21st of August 2007, they both got life in prison without the possibility of parole. They should have got like 3 or 4 life sentences, but you know, we move. So yes, Brian and Tori are now in prison. Matt is left with the guilt of leaving his girlfriend overnight, and obviously it's not his fault. You've got Cassie, who's house sitting for some money so she can save for a car, and her life is taken from her within a matter of seconds. My thoughts are with her family. It's sad. It is very sad. She's 16. Like, she's only 16 and she's just gone. Too quick. It's sad. And that takes us to the end of this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. You all have a great rest of your week. I want to thank every single one of you for subscribing, for liking, for commenting, for sharing, just for interacting. I'm very grateful for every single one of you. If any of you think that there is a case that you want me to cover, please leave in the comments below. But for now, that is the end of today's case. And from me and Benjamin, we will see you on the next video. But for now, it's bye.